go ahead and kick it off. All right. Well, my name is Steve, and my call sign K0FZ. I'm the trustee of the Southwest Missouri Amateur Radio Club. Tonight, I have with me our president, Rodney, and we're going to ask Rodney a few questions. And these are questions of a personal nature. And if you're watching and you'd like to ask Rodney a question, please do so in the chat. And we'll go ahead and answer those as well while we're at it. So, Rodney, if you would, give me your who you are, name, call sign, and...
Okay. All right. My name is Rodney Maloney. It's pronounced Maloney. A lot of people will see it firsthand, and they like to they'll say Maloney, or it could be everything underneath that, but it's pronounced Maloney, and our family makes sure that gets corrected. So, that's essentially what that is. I come from a family of amateur radio operators. Both my mother and my father, who is still active. In fact, he's even more active now than I am. Just several conversations with him. He's really enjoying the hobby now. My mother was also licensed for some time, but she's since then let her license expire. But when I was a kid, ham radio was all around, and a lot of times I thought that I would not even fall into that part of technology and whatnot. I just thought, well, I'm not going to talk on the radio. That's not something that I would do. And as things progressed and things, I got more interested in like storm spotting and things like that. And the first thing they said was, if you want to be of any help in this type of thing, you'd want to have probably a ham radio license. And then it just dawned on me, oh, wait a minute, my dad was a ham radio operator. Boom. And so then just kind of rolled from there. So yeah, I'm into technology of all kinds. When I was a child, I played on computers. I was always into things. If my father's watching, this is going to be scary, but I literally was in diapers and I was pressing the keyboard, so it's just one of those things where I come from a lot of technology and things like that.
Did you have anything in your home that just disappeared because you took it apart and couldn't figure out how to get it back together again?
Well, I wouldn't say that I took it apart so much. I was more of one of those hands-on kids. Like, for instance, everybody experienced the flashing VCRs back in the day. I was one of those kids to be like, if I push this button and, oh, hey, it doesn't blink anymore. Oh, and wait a minute, I can actually set the time for you. It would bug me when I would go to, family gatherings or whatever, and I'd see that VCR just flashing, and I would go and say, hey, let me go program that for you. So I was always the one going and programming the VCR, and I'm probably like 3 or 4 years old when I did that, and it was so funny because my parents would say, oh, hold on a second, he'll fix it for you, and so that's kind of what got me started,
Yeah, I gotta say that was probably not because I was a young one before there were the digital displays. I was an adult before I had the first VCR, but it was the same thing. If it was technical, I could usually figure it out, and I don't know. It sounds to me like you started out kind of like most of us in ham radio. It's you just can't help it.
No, and like I said, when I was a kid, I used to play I'd get like blocks, and I would build little computer. I'd have my keyboard, and me and my brother would be together going, okay, let's. It's almost like I was doing stuff. Oh, let me adjust this. And I was always pretending that I was working on a computer of some kind. When I was a kid in school, I would use my notepad and I would create little, you know, temporary or imaginary computers, and I would doctor it all up, and I'd act like I'm typing, and I was almost obsessed with it at that point in time when I was a kid. It had to have my computer book or my laptop or something.
You know, did that lead you into any studies as you became older into the field of technology? Like programming or whatever.
Well, I had aspirations of doing that, and there was a lot of technical stuff that came along, especially with going to school. I had tried going to college and getting a degree in computer information sciences, but there was a lot of struggles with math and some of the computations and things like that, and it just kind of steered me in a different direction. Now, when it comes to hands-on, I was pretty well self-learned. There's a lot of things that I kind of taught myself, um, that a lot of people who would go to school for however many years, to learn the profession, I would understand that. Now, if you don't stay in it, you tend to fall behind. So I obviously don't know a lot about networking as well as I should. I know, basic stuff, and I can build a computer, or repair things like that. But when it starts getting into the deep programming aspect of it, I'm still a little bit far behind. But it doesn't mean I can't learn it.
Well, yeah, that's the beauty, I guess, of it all, is that in this day and age, I sound like an old guy. Well, I am an old guy. There's anything that you want to know out there, and you can just get the information. Where it just, to me, it's like anything I want to know, it's out there. I just got to spend the time to learn it, and that, to me, I'm going to tell you, I think personally that makes now a lot better than it was back in the day, because you had to go check books out of the library, which I did regularly. I think I knew every single ham radio book in the Springfield Public Library, and had checked it out, and had overdue at least once on almost every one. So,
yeah, but, I would do that too. I would check out books. I would, you know, anything that was related to, a computer related type stuff. I would be digesting that. And I wasn't a big reader, but I like to get into magazines. One thing about it, my dad had a subscription to PC Mag, and I always enjoyed looking through those, and saying, oh wow, that computer's that, how much, whoa, it's got 25 megabytes, whoa, that's a lot of storage. um 486 on the cover, and I'm going, oh wow, that's Windows. And yeah, I grew up with it. Back in the day, MS-DOS, I was in the middle of it. Are you still with me?
So, yeah, I'm here. Killer B is saying we sound like we got double. I don't know. I'm not hearing double.
And I'll turn some stuff down just in case it's me. Is that any different? Are you broadcasting your feed through as well, maybe? And it's delayed?
No, I think it's picking up you a little bit on my microphone, which I can turn that down a little bit. I was just listening to the stream to see what it is, but See
Okay,
if
I'll
that's
turn mine back
improved
up.
it.
I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
Yeah, I'm not hearing that on your side. And my mic is a little bit hot, so that may be part of it. Um, but anyway, so these things have led you into a technical career, and being friends for a while, I know that you've kind of floated in and out of the cell phone industry a bit. You did do a stint, I think, with heating and air conditioning, but it probably excited you about as much as insurance excited me. Um, Tell me a little bit about what's going on now and what you're doing for a quote real job.
Well, I've been in the telecommunications industry since 2000. Before that, I did some temp jobs. I worked for Roadway at the time. That was my first real job, if you will, outside of maybe working for like McDonald's or anything like that. When I was 16, I was a dishwasher, so I moved up from there. But my first real break was, um, getting into the cell phone. And back then, that was when bag phones and flip phones were just barely starting to get on the market, and so I just basically went in from there. I had been doing that for quite some time. I worked for Altel. So for those who are familiar with Altel Communications, I worked with them until they were acquired by Verizon, and I worked then for Verizon in several different capacities. I was considered a data consultant at one point. I was a universal consultant. I mean, there's a whole list of different hats that I had, but bottom line, I was in sales, and I found myself good at sales. I was good at persuasion. I was good at persuading people to know, to be excited about things. I guess more than anything, I wasn't anything that was manipulative or anything. It was more of a, dude, guess what? I can do this, and you can do it too. It only costs this much. That's essentially, how I do it. And I mean, to this day, you get that kind of excitement. People see, oh wow, I can do that with my phone. Yeah, I want it. And it gets easier and easier as things go. But I've always been kind of a gearhead as far as that's concerned. So yeah, I have been doing this for, I'd say, consecutively about 15, 16 years. Um, I know how to do it. I do it well, and I don't see any need to change anything. Now, I mean, I think down the road I would maybe like to get into, doing the computer thing again. I have some ideas, and I've got a lot of people coaxing me to move in that direction. So we'll see what happens. Sometimes I have to get a good swift kick in the behind to get me to start thinking about stuff. And so we'll just see what happens, in the next year or so. We'll see what we can do. But as far as my job, yeah, I've just been, doing the cell phone thing, selling, troubleshooting, a whole list of things there that goes along with that.
Well, that's I tell you what, I did sales over the phone of cell phones, and it was a lot harder to get people excited about stuff when you couldn't just show it to them. But I guess the difference was is when they called me, they wanted something.
Yeah.
They specifically said, I want, this iPhone or this Galaxy S whatever. Back then I was selling S3s and S4s, and we kind of was out. We was out by the S4 time over at Best Buy, and that was phone side, not the store side. I think I'd have probably liked that a whole lot better in the store. I did like selling computers, but
Well, I mean, my biggest thing is if you can get a job and play with phones and do things on the phones and get paid for it, and then sell that phone to someone else, to me, that was a win-win because I enjoy being immersed in that kind of technology. I mean, it has its ups and downs, but I mean, I moved from sending a text message through a BlackBerry or getting a pager to instantaneous communication, and it's just that much, it's getting faster and more responsive all the time. Um, you
Uh-huh.
know, so yeah, I mean, I've kind of ran the gambit as far as that's concerned.
I mean, if you got a data connection, you can just talk to it and it does that for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I grew up with the first smartphone. And of course, BlackBerry was big back then. Um, I was as a data consultant, I carried 6 or 7 phones at one time because I needed to
Dang.
know how to do all these things with these different kinds of phones. And they had Windows Mobile back then. And I'm going, how would you put Windows on a little device like this, And
Windows CE.
oh yeah, yeah. Or there's a whole list of them there, but I thought it was just the coolest thing when you started having touch screen, and they responded to you and everything else.
That's to be honest with you, I think if we only just talked about that, we'd have so much to talk about.
Oh, I know,
Because
yeah,
we
don't get me
both kind
started.
of,
I'd have to clock on or something by then.
yeah, yeah. Um, I have I have experience that dates back to the old brick cell phone. You could talk on about 15 minutes and it was dead. And now this segues right into the club because we're both members. Um, you are currently the president of the Southwest Missouri Amateur Radio Club. I am a former president of the Southwest Missouri Amateur Radio Club. I think we both got dragged into the job kicking and screaming and scared to death.
You know,
Tell me what you think now.
yeah, so it's kind of interesting, this may go back with some of the questions you may be answering, but when I got into ham radio, that was back in 2015. And it was kind of funny because, like I said, I went to one of those weather deals that they were doing with the National Weather Service at I believe it was in Nixa when I went and did it. And they're like, you need to get your license. And I thought, oh, well, I better do that. Oh, well, when are they testing? Oh, they're testing in 2 weeks. So as soon as I got home from going to that weather deal, I went on Amazon, got it on, I put it on an iPad or whatever, and I just started studying like crazy. And I took the test 2 weeks later, and obviously got my technician license. And not even like 3 months later, they're going, "Hey, you want to be a president?" I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I kept kind of asking questions. Are we doing this? Do we do this? Can we do this? Well, we do things like this, and of course it was like it was, and I didn't know anything about what I was doing. And then they thought, well, if you're interested and you want to do it, because the last president, his term was coming up, and so I was like, okay, well, sure. If everybody wants me as the president, then I guess I will do it. And sure enough, it was unanimous. And I'm like, oh darn, what did I
Oh
get
boy.
myself into? But here I am on my second term, so I must be doing something right. So that basically says since I just got started as an amateur radio operator, I have been in this role, not knowing what I'm doing, just kind of inventing it along the way. And I've got a great bunch of people who are like-minded that has that same goal. And I just started kind of throwing some ideas out there. And I thought, what if we did this? What if our club did this? Or what could we do if we did this? And then we had people that, hey, let's do this and see what happens. And it blows up. So,
Oh
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, here I am. I'm now an amateur extra. I have a new call sign. I have a vanity call sign. I've been through 3 different call signs. And it's kind of bad because our, vice president at the time, Franklin, was like, I can barely keep track of your first call sign, let alone the other two that you went through. So my first call sign was Kilo Echo Zero Delta Tango Zulu. That was a rough go for me because I mean I'm still learning phonetics, and when someone's going TTT DDD ZZZ because it all sounds the same on the radio, and I'm trying to change that up a little bit, Delta Tango Zulu. I was thinking Denver time zone. I was thinking all sorts of things to kind of help people pick it up, and it just didn't go. Well, I wasn't satisfied with just being a technician, so I moved on to be a general within 2 or 3 months later. I want to say in May, I took my test for my general, and so I was granted my general license in May of that same year. So I just decided, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to just move right into the general and roll with it. And I just kind of stuck with that for a couple of years. I never really got online or on the radio. I was just kind of sat by and watched everybody. I acted like I was doing, well, I knew what I was doing, but in all actually, I had a lot of mic fright at first. It was hard for me to get on HF. So that kind of made me kind of reluctant to get my own radio there for a while.
That was 3 years you've been president now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think my term will end here at the end of the year, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right. So now I think the odd thing for me was when I became extra. It turned out that I spent way more time on the bands where I only needed the technician. I mean, in other words, I was on 2 meters more than I was on anything else. It's like, okay, that is certainly not how I thought it would be.
Yeah, I know.
I think the thing that scared me the most about being president was that, okay, now here is a group of people that are looking at me to make sure that this is going to be a fun thing to do. And I hope I can come up with enough stuff. And it was difficult at first, but then it kind of, you just like, well, I did most all of the presentations back then. It wasn't like now where you've got a few extras that do it. But
Yeah, and I mean, I guess when I first got started, I mean, here I was trying to think of different things to talk about, and being a brand new amateur myself, I was going, well, let's talk about it, but I'm going to have to learn how to do this if I'm going to be the one giving the presentation. I don't know squat about what I'm talking about right now, other than what I know of basics of what I learned through the test. How in the world am I going to be able to tell other people that may be even more, you know, experienced than I am, and they're going to go, that's wrong, or that's not right, or that's, and I was worried about what kind of, the not necessarily being judged, but, it is still that in the back of your mind. You always kind of think, I don't want to steer someone in the wrong direction. I don't want to give them the wrong information. But a lot of things kind of threw us into a tailspin, because when I first got, I immediately got voted in, and we ended up having a little bit of an upset, and we lost our meeting place. And so, not even 2 months into being president, we ended up having to just kind of we had to basically grab up and find another place to go, find another place to meet. And I'm going, I have no idea what I'm going to do here. And frankly, we had some members that jumped in again and helped, and I'm so grateful for them for doing that. I mean, we had a church open up for us. One of the the one of our members, I guess, brother-in-law, was the pastor, and so he asked me and allowed us to meet there. And I mean, it wasn't an ideal location, but it was a place to meet, and it was great. We had a place to go, and then we did some searching around, and then we were able to find our current place now, um, which is at the DAV. And of course, we had several feelers out there that, and some members that had friends in places that was able to get us connected, and that's where we're currently at now. But it was rough. It was rough as a president just to be able to. I want to keep this membership together, and we weren't very big back then. I want to say what we had maybe 20, 30 membership at the
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
people that were dropping and going other places because I mean we couldn't keep their attention. And that was one of the things I sat back and I go, I can't let this membership die under me. I'm just getting started as a president and people are leaving like crazy. But then I just decided, well, if I can't use this as a learning tool for myself, I might as well make it to where people can learn too. So we're all learning together.
Right.
So
Well,
anyway.
and that's the thing about it is you can't do it by yourself. And I think I had that difficulty too. It's like there's times when it's like this is bigger than me. I can't figure it out, and it's like, all right, guys, you gotta jump in here and do something and help me with it. Which was the hardest thing in the world to do because you're supposed to be, at least my opinion, you're supposed to be that all-knowing,
You had to,
all-doing.
know what you were saying and know what you were doing. And I would step up in
Yeah.
front of people and going, "Oh man, am I supposed to start the meeting now?" And it's like 15 after 5 o'clock, and I mean, even raising my voice felt weird. Putting myself in a position of authority when I mean, as far as our president is concerned, I mean, I didn't have a lot of experience speaking in front of people. So for me to jump out of my comfort zone on that one, that was just as bad as the mic fright. So I thought, well, shoot, if I can do this in front of people, surely I can do it behind a mic where nobody knows what I look like most of the time. So I kind of
Yeah.
got all past that, and I got past that, as far as the um, just having the confidence to stand in front of people and kind of try to help run the show. I think I've got a pretty good run on it now. I think I think I got it figured out, and I'll be out
You
of,
do. All you gotta do is have Dave do the yelling when they're too loud. Just have Dave holler because he's there for us.
We're over. We love you, Dave.
So, tell me a bit about some of the things that you are doing yourself. Some of the projects that you got going on in ham radio stuff that you're working on, or wish that you could work on, or what's that passion that's driving you? Where do you see yourself, or what do you have going that you can tell us about?
As far as ham radio, I mean, I'm doing little here's and there's. I mean, the fact that we're getting on and doing this right now, talking about ham radio, I learn a lot in general. I'm part of a podcast on Thursdays that talks about ham radio and weather, and I mean, a lot of my hobbies and interests kind of go hand in hand. So if we can talk about weather and we can talk about ham radio, then score. We got a 2-for-1 out of
Yeah.
the deal. Um, I'm just getting into the amplifier game. So I want to kind of learn how that works, get familiar with how that works as far as learning. I mean, it doesn't take much as far as an amplifier is concerned, but I want to get to a point where maybe I may grow into something bigger. So I consider this my training amp, if you will. I'd like to get into a point where maybe I could set up my radio to do something maybe remotely. I think that would be kind of a neat thing. Try to set that up. I'm kind of just, that came to mind just a few days ago. I was like, I wouldn't mind, if for whatever reason I needed to get access to my radio and I wasn't home, what could I do? Is that something I could do? And I'm
Right.
sure it's possible. It is possible with a lot of technology out there. So I'm kind of digging on that a little bit. Just trying to get as involved as I can, maybe with some contact or some QSO parties and things like that. I just want to get on the radio, period. And of course, scheduling and my schedule is going to ever so changing. It's just going to be one of those things where you just got to sit down and maybe get some time to just get on the radio and play around. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't have any specific hobby or not, you know, I guess if anything, I'm working towards maybe building me a shack. Again,
Yeah.
we're
I was going
talking
to ask you
about
about
it.
that.
We're talking about it. We're bringing it to fruition at some point. I keep feel like I'm dragging my feet, but for those of you who are aware of what's going on, I will get it done. I've actually put a date as when I want to get it done. So now I have to start focusing on that and rolling. So if you're
Yeah.
watching and you guys want to help me tear this thing down, it's going to happen soon. I just got to
So,
get some other stuff taken care of.
so Killer Bee's kind of in that same mindset that I am about what would be the ideal. What are you shooting for when? And to be honest with you, I haven't seen your garage, so I don't know where you're at with that. But what
We
what
won't
would
go
be
there.
the ideal?
What would be the
What
ideal
kind
ham
of
shack, you mean?
yeah? What would be the setup, and how much changes would you make compared to what you have now?
Oh, well, I mean, I would just like the ability to just kind of go and I can be as loud as I want. I can, because I mean, right now my ham shack is a ham corner. Where I'm standing
Right.
is taking up a lot of space, and I have a very, very patient wife that the patience is wearing thin, and so it's coming down to a point where she knows good and well that I would be much happier in a place where I could just kind of put all my stuff, whatever I want to do. That would be my room. I've always just kind of put it off and put it off and put it off, and now it's to a point now where I need to act and get it done. It's been way too long. I could have done it when I was younger. I could have done it when the garage was in much better condition. I could have. There's a lot of woulda couldas, and now I'm regretting a lot of things, so I'm having to learn from that. As I get older, I'm going, okay. I wake up in the morning and I'm creaking and I'm popping and I'm cracking and I'm going, ugh, this is not going to happen on its own, and I'm going to just have to get with it and get it done. So yeah, as
Yeah.
far
When
as
you
me getting what I want, I wouldn't mind having something similar to what maybe Jordan's doing. And I'm not trying to mimic what he has, but to be able to have my radio and have it spaced out the way I want it, have my computer screens where I want it. I mean, a nice little. And again, I don't even know how that's going to come together, but if it just a small room that I can call my own if I want to watch a movie or something. It's a man cave. It's a ham shack. It's an
yeah,
all-in-one. That's what I'm going for.
yeah. Well, Killer Bee says you're dragging your feet, but who am I to judge?
We're having these conversations. He's still kicking me. So
That's the benefit of live television, right?
he's a great friend and he's been a very big motivator. So if anyone can talk me into it, he can. So
Well, he knows. He's been told now. So, in that regard, you've got a wife and a couple young ones. Talk to me about them a little bit. Tell me about their what's going on with them.
well, my wife and I have been married going on 22 years, I believe. Oh man, I'm gonna get in trouble if I don't know this right.
Oh,
We were married in 1998, so yeah, that would put us pretty close. We were married young, obviously, didn't know what we were doing, as most young couples would. Obviously, she knew I liked computers and stuff like that, and she tolerated all that. I always had a computer at some point in the corner. Um, she went on to, or she basically, she started kind of wanting to be into cosmetology, and so she went into cosmetology and learned that, and she um, also was going to school to get her teaching degree. And so between going to school and working as a cosmetologist, um, she did that up to the point where our firstborn, which is my son now, who's 17, and she decided, this cosmetologist thing is not all it's cracked up to be. So she went and finished her teaching degree, and then of course trying to get jobs there, and after seeing a lot of things related to the public school, she kind of turned more to the private sector. So when my son was old enough to get into like kindergarten, she started being kind of a teacher helper type thing at some of the private schools in town. And so in all aspects, my wife has been involved, um, directly with our kids as far as their school. We chose to have both of our kids in private school for quite some time, up to at least last year. Um, my son's he goes to high school, and then my daughter's still going to a kind of a secondary school. But we told her that we'd probably let her get into high school, when she gets just a little older. We want to kind of keep her, as far as that's concerned. But yeah, I have two children. Well, I say two children. Like I said, I have a 17-year-old. The kid's taller than me.
Yeah, I've seen that. He's
Yeah,
lying.
crazy. And then my daughter is 13, and you know, she's a lot like me. It's scary sometimes. She is the techie kind of, well, she's more artistic, I guess, but she's not afraid of getting into the computer stuff. And she is more of a hands-on. She'll get on and watch some YouTube, and she'll play some little games here and there, but she's more like me every time, and it's scary at times. So yeah, I mean,
do you,
got some good
do you
kids.
think she's going to be the one that follows in your footsteps in the ham radio?
Not right now, no. No, I don't see that. And I thought for a little bit that my son would, but he's got some other aspirations for himself, I guess. So I guess maybe. I don't know. I mean, my wife's not interested in it. Um, that's just not her forte. She's into reading and crocheting and things like that. A lot of the artistic side of things. I've got a very artistic family. Everybody's artistic but me. I'm the techie guy, and then everybody else is artistic. So there you go.
Well, there's. It's hard to say when they're teenagers because there's all that whole rebellion thing,
Hmm.
which we all did it in one way or the other. We all rebelled against our parents, and if we didn't do it, that's probably wouldn't be healthy.
Well,
So
you almost have to kind of step your boundaries and see. And I can say that, and I don't know, maybe, I mean, I don't, I could just say that I think our kids have done very well. As far as the rebellion side, I haven't felt like we've really experienced that yet. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but our kids have been pretty good. I can't say that they've been perfect, but they're good kids, and
they're kids.
we experience our ups and downs, and we have our issues there. But I mean, they're both teenagers now. I think my daughter is getting even a little bit more that way, but she's not really defiant. It's just more of a dad, you're silly, don't talk to me, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And I mean, I think I have a fairly good relationship with both of them.
Wow. And see, that's a great thing because even though they're going to go, oh, dad, mine did that. But after a while, then they kind of come around. Mine didn't. But that doesn't mean that mine are indicative of everybody's kids. But you never know. She might become the next Skywarn coordinator.
Anything's possible, but at this general point in time, I don't see her doing that. Maybe when she gets a little older, but it's gonna be
I
it's
never
gonna be
dreamed
on
Patty
her.
would, but she's excelled at it, and I'm
Yeah,
kind of
I
like,
mean, if you ever get that, that bug, I mean, I've never gotten her to come in here and say, "Hey, sit on my lap or something," and try to talk on the radio or whatever. It when she was a kid, that never really came. I mean, keep in mind, 5 years ago, I've only really been in the hobby 5 years, so back,
yeah.
that just never came up, I guess.
So you remember Patty telling that story about the scanner that got her into amateur radio?
Oh, wow, cool.
Right there, I still have it,
Wow.
and I just programmed in the. And she listened to it, and she's just like, "I want to do that." I'm like,
Yeah, and I mean, my dad
yes,
had
you
a
did.
scanner back then, and I used to go in and push buttons and listen and watch the little zero going back and forth and saying, "Oh, it picked up," and
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. And I mean, that was back when there was a lot of more frequencies that were open, and you could, you know, hear some pretty interesting stuff as a kid, and
Yeah.
it's it's probably a good thing it happened that way because, whew, you know, it's worse than late night TV. But anyway, it was just one of those things where yeah, I mean, he had a scanner. I liked that. I ended up getting me something similar to it when I was in high school, and I mean, I got into CB radio. I had a CB radio there for a while. There was a guy that I don't know how I got in, you know, acquainted with him, but he had kind of like a CB shop down the way, and I would walk down to his shop and I would help him kind of clean out stuff and kind of like just a
Yeah.
little hired hand. He'd give me little bits and pieces. So I mean, I had a CB radio that I stuck the mag mount on something metal in my house. I can't even remember. I think it was just like an old VCR uh, frame, because they were made out of metal back then. It wasn't all plastic or
Oh yeah.
anything. And I just, stuck it right on. And uh, and then I would try to set out in the truck and talk on it. And I was kept trying to figure out what I wanted my handle to be. And it didn't last for very long, but still, it was something that, if anything, that might have been the spark of talking on the radio. Because I'm like, oh well, CB is not like talking on ham radio. This is
Yeah.
not what I would want to do. And that may have been what turned me off. I don't know. It was kind of different because my dad, he started in CB. That's how they communicated. They didn't have cell
Yeah.
phones back then. And then he got into with some friends, and that's how he got into the ham radio part anyway. So, but I've always known him as being a ham radio operator all my life. So he was in it a lot, right after I was
Right.
born. So,
I played that game a bit too when I was quite young, teenager, and mid to late 70s. We had sunspots like you've never seen them. It was a hot year for sunspots, which made CB pretty much unusable because if it's skipping, you're not doing much. You just can't hear nothing.
hmm
So I think that's what moved me out of it into a more where those things benefited you, not hurt you. But yeah, So, do you do stuff other than ham radio for a hobby? Do you have other passions that take a little bit of your time?
Well, I mean, I like to be on the computer. I like to do things as far as, just kind of, I like toys like anybody else. I like my technology. So, whether I be using a tablet or my phone or whatever. And I mean, I guess you can say I'm somewhat addicted to it since I have to work with it. But I mean, I do my best to kind of hold myself back, knowing, you know, I know what I look like when I'm engulfed in it all the time. But I mean, as far as, I mean, I mean, when I was in high school, I used to sing. I would sing in um, choirs and things like that. So I'm not the best singer in the world, but I could carry somewhat of a tune. I got medals and I got awards. So all I know is I must have, I could at least do well in as far as that was concerned. Um,
Way better than me. I couldn't. Nope. And
but yeah,
my dad does it. I nope. You're forgetting something.
yeah. I mean, I
That other
just like
channel
to,
that you appear on.
yeah. I mean, I
The
like
other.
that, and I mean, when both of my kids like to sing too, so my whole family can
Yeah.
sing. But I mean, as far as other things, yeah, I mean, I just like to dabble in all kinds of different technology. I always just kind of learn, oh, what can I do? Oh, that's cool. I mean, I'll watch the occasional TV show here and there, but I mean, that's really
We
what I kind
we
of do.
also share another hobby, and you're probably a lot more passionate than me, and that's weather.
Oh yeah, yeah, I do like the weather. Yeah. Um,
And I mean, honestly, besides Patty, you and her are the Jungle Chasers part of it. I'm just the producer.
well, I mean,
So
Franklin
you've
knows quite a
definitely
bit
gone a
about it
lot
too.
further than me in that.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I mean, I would have never thought in my, as a ham radio operator, I would learn how to read radar or anything to that effect. I never thought that I would be one of those that got on the radio to do this kind of stuff. I mean, when I was younger and I did hear Jim Sellers back then, and in my mind as a young person that never really got into the ham radio, I would just listen and he would always be getting on there and I thought, man, as many storms as they have and he has to drive down to the National Weather Service every time he has to get on the radio. It never dawned on me that he was doing it at his own house, but I once honestly thought that he was just doing that from an office in the National Weather Service office. It never
that
really came
that
to,
used to be true.
yeah.
That used to be true.
But yeah, I had no idea that he was doing it from his home. And so that really kind of thought, well, shoot, if surely I could do something from my home and kind of learn from that too. And of course, with technology, again, if it can be tied with technology, cell phones or anything like that, I mean, I guess you can kind of roll that all together, and so.
Do, do you think that that's what led you into the weather, the Skywarn side of it, or did you have also an interest before in just from the side of weather?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't know that I would have the courage to go out and chase like storms or tornadoes. I'm not saying that I wouldn't do that. I mean, I'm still fascinated by it, but that wouldn't be my first driving instinct. It would be more of, you know, I think the passion of being aware, whether it be from my own family or my own, um, you know, awareness, so to speak. If I can read it and know where I'm at any given time and I can keep either my family or myself safe, that was kind of where I was at, and I'm thinking, well, if I can do that, I can also help other people be safe too. And so then when I find, you know, Skywarn, and I learned that, these things are needed to communicate with the National Weather Service and things like that, and I'm going, well, my dad was a ham. I could be a ham. I like weather. My dad kind of likes weather. I mean, he always had the weather station going, but I think it was just for awareness. I don't know that he was
Right.
in that capacity. I'm not saying he probably would, but you know, I think putting those two things together is what kind of drives me together. Yeah, so I say ham radio and weather together is pretty cool.
There's it's cool stuff. Now I'm gonna be honest. For me, I don't carry the passion that you or Patty has. And I will say I'm the guy that keeps the radios going, but that may not always be the case in the future. I don't know, um, it just it has a bit of fascination for me, and it makes Patty crazy when I start talking about thermodynamics, and she's like, oh.
Well, I mean, my small little stint in air conditioning, you learn a lot about thermodynamics. You learn a lot about and then when you start kind of putting that knowledge in and go, oh wow, temperature inversions. Oh well, yeah, heat does rise, So, it kind of helps you to put a lot of that stuff in perspective, because there's a lot of things I didn't know about air conditioning. I thought it just blew and kept you cool. I had no idea that conditioning was conditioning. It was it was like a lung. You breathe in, you breathe out. It has to circulate. I didn't know that. I honestly, whenever you're sitting in front of a vent and you're feeling cool, that's great, but that air has to go somewhere. And it never dawned on me. So now, having the experience I have now of understanding how that works, it kind of goes back into, well, okay, well, if I understand how cold fronts work, well, I know how air conditioning work, and I know how you have to move air conditioning, or you have to move, cold air to get the warm air. Needless to say, it helped me to understand the thermodynamic aspect of weather, just by what I
Right.
learned in that industry for the short time I was in it.
Well, got to make admission to our audience this evening. I did give Rodney the questions, at least an outline of what we were going to talk about tonight, so that I didn't hit him up with something that he didn't see coming. And we've reached the bottom of that list, so um, I guess one last question is. What do you think of the future? What are you looking forward to? Ham radio, maybe life. Tell me about that.
Looking towards the future. I guess as far as ham radio is concerned, I still want to stay very active in my club. I'd like to see our club continue to grow, and I mean, as far as activities, be part of that brainstorming aspect of it. What can we do to make ourselves better? What can we do to get the word out? I think as an ambassador, I feel like I'm kind of like an ambassador for ham radio when I'm in this position, because I can go back and say the same thing that I do as a salesperson in, selling phones. I can sell people on the idea of this is what you can do with a radio. If you can talk on a phone from one person to another, think of what it's like when you got 1,500 people wanting to talk to you at the same time. And
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to. When you get the bug, like I said, you don't understand it until you get it, and then you're just like, oh. So, man, as far as future is concerned, I know that ham radio is obviously evolving. I'm gonna, obviously look into different aspects of that. I would always like to, you're always looking for maybe a better radio here and there. I've got a decent radio. I mean, as far as my transceiver is concerned, I mean, I think I'm going to be pretty happy with it for a while, but who doesn't want something maybe a little bit more, um, I don't know. They always tell you bigger, badder, better, so you want to, look for something that you can always kind of increase on. But as far as my life is concerned, I think I've been doing my sales industry, and I think I'll still probably be in some kind of sale, or at least hopefully continue in a management role. And there may be a time, and again, this conversation, I know where this is going to go. I'm going to probably get flack for this, but I do eventually want to maybe get out of this and move in towards maybe doing some computer stuff, stuff that I've done as a kid. I can maybe turn back into a passion, and do that down the road. And like I said, just need coaxing and kicks in the tail to eventually kind of push towards that. And I've got a good family and friends that are helping me down that way. So eventually I'll get a good smack in the head or a good kick in the tail to kind of get me moving. But that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. So
somebody shows up with a pickup truck and say, we're tearing the garage down today, Rodney.
And that's probably going to happen soon. That's probably going to happen soon. So
Killer B gets to have one more question. And honestly, this is kind of a question that goes to both of us, it looks like. What do you think? What do you think, ham radio will always be a thing, or do you think the online internet will overcome and make ham radio irrelevant?
So you want my answer?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think ham radio will be relevant in a lot of things. I think a lot of people think ham radio is kind of going away, but I honestly believe that it's just getting into its prime. Technology, whether it be, we're just now starting to get into the digital aspect of things. If HF starts getting to a digital aspect, just think of what that's going to open up for the spectrum. Because right now, if you're talking being able to communicate on a 300 kilohertz wide, transmission, and now that one transmission could have millions of transmissions on one frequency because of the technology, what digital can do. I mean, that's just going to open it up to so much more. As far as for the, as the viability of ham radio, it's going to be there, because one day there could be a time when we need to have that communication aspect of things where nothing else is going to be working, and you got to be able to communicate. And so I believe that ham radio is going to be around in some shape or form for quite some time.
Oh yeah. Well, and to just add on my answer to that, because I have skin in the game as well. Bottom line is, we were thrown to the wayside in 1912 when the Titanic sunk, and they all decided, well, them ham guys, we're just going to stick them in a shelf in radio frequencies that nobody wants. And they can have that. The commercial guys are going to take the good ones, which at that time, 1500 kilohertz was the breakover. Anything above 1500 kilohertz was a ham radio frequency. Well, we figured out how to make that work. And then everybody wanted it. And now there's going to be frequencies that no digital service is going to want. It's not going to be any good for providing data to cell phones. We're going to get relegated to those eventually. We'll fight it, but I'm sure that there'll be forces that we won't be able to overcome, but we will make it work. I kind of have the feeling that we're going to have everything below 50 megahertz, because if you look at how shortwave has kind of gone to the wayside, we can make that work. I think there will be hams that will be as tenacious as we've been to make new stuff happen. And I think we've got a great future, and we've got a lot of good-looking young hams coming on that have some amazing capability, and I'm happy. I'm sure I'll be gone, and they'll be doing stuff that I want to see. Like, I want that Moon and Mars as DX entities. It's the Mars is on the close approach to Earth right now, and it only takes 6 minutes round trip. So it's doable. I assure you, if there's ham operators on Mars, we'll figure it out. We'll make contacts. I have an absolute faith in the system. Well, Rodney, I want to say that it's been great having you on the show tonight. I hope everybody that gets to see this gets to see a side of you they might not know. It's always good to know who are the people that run the show and the club is, and you've done a really great job of letting everybody know who you are, and we appreciate that. So, I'm going to have to call it an end to the show because we've gone overtime a little bit, and want to thank everybody for joining us, either live or later. So, Rodney, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, my name is Steve, call sign K0FZ. I'm your trustee for the Southwest Missouri Amateur Radio Club. Keep an eye out for more of these kind of shows. We want to continue this and make sure everybody gets a chance to get interviewed that wants to. I've had a great time tonight, and thank you all for joining us. So, with that, have a great evening. KA0 SPM 73.
73. This is K0FZ.